The blue and gold post-game show here as A&T really took one on the chin, falling. Let's see it. Final score 62-20 in the ball game with Al Swann and Billy Covington. Donal Ware with you here, and we've already got a comment in the chat. Jay Stowe says that was rough, but we support Coach Gibbs in this rebuilding project. And, I mean, it sort of really looked like that today. I mean, look, the Eagles just looked like the much more superior ball team. We thought there may be some carryover from the Aggies last week, but the Eagles got a really, really good ball club.
The thing that really stood out to me, guys, were the dominance of the offensive and defensive line of Central, especially the offensive line.
Yeah.
You know, we're not used to seeing teams run on A&T like that. And one of the things that I was hoping for coming to this game was that some teams have had some success running against Central. They had given up, I think 150 yards plus running, in a couple of games this year. But we just were not able to put together any type of running play, running offense. Both their lines, their offense and their defensive lines, dominated the game. And that was what was kind of disappointing to me.
Our guy Hans. All right, I got to ask you, Hans, are you in Indy right now? He says, my brothers, good to see you, albeit under these bad circumstances. In hindsight, we beat a bad Hampton team, and it took us 2 overtimes to do it. We have hills to climb, and it starts up front. And to the point, with the last score we heard, what was Howard 41-0? Or at least that was the last score we heard over Hampton, and Howard is not a great football team.
Yeah.
So it's probably a fair point, but you still, in to his point about up front, on both sides of the
both
football.
sides, you mentioned that, The offense and the defensive line of Central was just totally dominant today. And that's wears them down because we know what we're going to see in the CAA. I mean, we saw it last couple of years, big offensive lines, big defensive lines. And so that's going to be a big problem for us as we move on.
And let's see, Stevens Lee, Aggie says, shout out to the Houston Aggies, Aggie Eagle Classic watch party at Net Bar, Aggie Pride. All right, Houston Aggies in the building. And, 765 yards of total offense.
That is just totally unbelievable. I just couldn't fathom that, but it is what it is. And a lot of it, again, has to do with the domination of the offensive and defensive line of Central. We came to this game, we know they had skilled players. We knew Harris Walker's a heck of a quarterback. He can throw the ball. They got good running backs, got good wide receivers, tight end. But we just did not see the domination on both sides of the ball in terms of the offensive and defensive line. So that was really problematic for us today.
All right, Ahan says, yes, brothers, Teresa and I are watching you good brothers in living color in Indianapolis, Naptown. I think the Circle City Classic, is that next week? I think it's next week between Morgan State and Miles. So that's always a good classic. Of course, A&T has played in that classic in the past. Now, Billy, it was something you were going to ask Al.
Yeah, Al, I was going to ask you, you coached a lot of football games, and I'm sure out of all the years that you've coached, you've taken a defeat like A&T had today.
No,
You haven't?
no.
I'm sorry. Well, what can Sean Gibbs talk to the kids about next week to get them prepared for the University of Maine after taking a defeat like this?
Well, as somehow you have got to find a way to put this behind you. Now, it's easier said than done because we're all humans. We have memories, but you've got to find a way to put this behind you. You still have the crux of your conference season ahead of you, and you got to focus on that. Today's game is over. You can't do anything about that. It's gone. So from now, the time you go in that locker room, hey, you focus on the games next week and what do you need to do to get better. That's where you focus on. And I'm sure Coach Gibbs is going to talk about that. And one of the positive things that we saw today was the reappearance of Kevin White.
Yeah.
We first saw him as a freshman last year. We thought he had unlimited potential. Of course, he's been bothered by injury, and hopefully he came out of today's game with no injury. But you just got to put this behind you and just focus on how do we get better. Talk about what the things you need to do to get better, and you just go from there, build from there.
Yep, Kevin White, 10 of 16, 232 yards.
Yeah.
He had the one touchdown. He did throw the one pick, but he also had one rushing touchdown in the ball game. Let's see. Darryl Foster says Aggie pride, but he also says after the first quarter, I knew this game was over. Timothy Bryant says SMH. Patricia says tough loss. And let's see, Darryl says we got beat badly. On to the next game, much like you said there, Al. Darryl also says it's going to take time to really rebuild this program.
Yep.
And he says, let's see how the rest of the season goes. But to your point, now we got to take a flight to Maine.
Yeah.
And,
never been there, so we'll see. But getting back, Billy, you just got to put it behind you. I know it's not easy to do.
Yeah, I know.
But you got to focus on what you need to do to improve. And those are the things that you focus on. Those are the things that you work on. And, by doing that, you always give your team, hopefully mentally, a chance that that you're going to win. That's all you can do.
Well, Donald, I did see Howard beat Hampton 34-7 today in Washington, D.C.
34-7, Howard.
34-7. Howard wins over Hampton in the HU Classic. But and I understand that's usually a big football game.
Yeah.
But Al, I agree with you. There's not one thing you can do about today's game. It's over.
It's over.
Case closed. And you just have to prepare. Look at some film. Central just out-muscled us offensively and defensively on the end. They had speed. Walter Harris had all day to throw the ball. And when you have a quarterback as good as Harris is, and you give him that kind of time to throw, your defensive backs don't have a chance. In order to be a good defensive back, you got to get some good push from up front, and we didn't get that today. So, it's over with now. Check on your injuries next week. Get in the weight room and try to get a little stronger and see what you can do next week when you go to Maine.
John says it's not like we played a team that was not good. Face it, NCCU has a good team.
Yeah.
We will get there. Just keep moving forward. I think it's a great point. Look, South Carolina State, the defending MEAC champs, okay, they lost a lot from last year. You bring back a guy like a Walker Harris. You bring back a good receiving core. You bring back a Chris Mosley.
That's right.
You bring back 2 HBCU All-American preseason offensive linemen. You bring back a good defense. To me, the Eagles were the team to beat in the MEAC, and this just showed why. I mean, that's a good Eagles football team.
No doubt about it. And the surprise again for me was the dominance of the offense and defensive lines of Central. And, you just spoke to that, Donal. When you got 2 preseason All-Americans on that offensive line, boy, I tell you, it makes it tough. And you got a quarterback that is as talented as Harris Walker, and you give him all day to throw, and you don't get any pressure on that guy. I mean, it just really makes it very, very tough. And so, if you're the Aggie coaching staff, you go in tonight, you identify your problems, you try to ascertain, are these problems correctable? And if they are correctable, what do we need to do to correct them? And you just go to work. That's all you could do.
Well, South Florida beat South Carolina State today 63-14. And so South Florida does have a good football team, and they played in Florida. So it looks like South Carolina State was outnumbered, if you want to call it that, today in the MEAC.
And, you look at Maine. Maine is in a fight with Georgia Southern. 7-7 is the score in the first quarter. And Maine, if it doesn't get the victory today against Georgia Southern, then it's going to be looking for its first victory of the season as well.
Yeah, Sacred Heart beat Michael Vick today, 31-28. And I think, if Vick is given a chance, he might be able to do something there in Norfolk.
But we still face the problem that we've seen down the last couple of years in terms of conference play. We get against some of those teams, and they got these big offensive lines, and we know we're undersized on the defensive side of the ball, and we have to depend a lot on our quickness. But when you come up against these teams, man, that are bigger, much bigger than you, and these guys are just not big, they're talented. And you combine that with good quarterback play and a good running game, it just puts more and more pressure on the offense to produce. And anytime you get beat up front, boy, I tell you, it's going to make for a long day. No doubt about it.
All right, Hans, I hear you. You and Teresa are going to be at the Circle City Classic, but certainly going to be watching the game against Maine on Flow Sports. So, of course, we look forward to seeing you next week on the Blue and Gold post-game show. And like you said, just got to focus your attention next week. And let's see, Xavier says straight BTA, horrible game from the start, but Central has a better squad and coaching, must do better against Maine. And again, Maine, Georgia Southern is, FBS program.
That's right.
So you never know. It was 7-7, but we presumably Maine could be looking for its first win next week. And if you're A&T, you want to go up to Maine and not allow for the Bears to get their first win.
So hopefully we came out of this game with no injuries. And I think Kevin White survived. And it was good to see him out there playing again, because we saw him early on his freshman year and we just thought he had a ton of potential. But he's slight. He's not a very big kid, and he's been bothered with injury. But if we can keep him upright and keep him healthy, I think it's going to really bode well for that Aggie offense.
One of the other positives, A&T gets his first turnover of the season, a scoop and score by Tim Olderman. So maybe that's something to build upon for next week. We're going to get ready to get out of here on the Blue and Gold post-game show. Al, any last words?
No, just the fact that it's a tough game, and hopefully the Aggies can put this game behind them, go back on the drawing board, go to work, come back and try to do a better job next week when we travel for the first time to Maine against the University of Maine.
Billy?
That's going to be a tough game, Al. The Black Bears have a great football program, and as you indicated, they are huge. So it's going to be a tough game for you all, and you all have a safe trip, and Lord's willing and the creek don't rise. I will see you homecoming.
No doubt that's going to be the next home football game for A&T on October 11th. But again, we're going to be up in Maine on next Saturday. It's a 3:30 kickoff, and we're coming on with the pregame show at 3 o'clock on the Aggie Sports Radio Network. As we get ready to wrap it up, I want to thank Des back at the studios of the Aggie Sports Radio Network for all of his great work. For Al Swann and Billy Covington, Donal Ware saying so long for now from Truist Stadium here on the campus of North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro. Your final score, North Carolina Central 62, North Carolina A&T 20. You've been listening to Aggie Football on the Aggie Sports Radio Network.